Post to your profile. Share via email. Report story. By Rex underscore 101,111. Izuku has a broken leg, a dislocated shoulder, one eye so swollen he can't open it, and also possibly a concussion. Despite all that, he can't help but feel profoundly at peace. Perhaps it was because he had finally managed to bring down the League of Villains once and for all, the final battle with Shigaraki being to blame for most of his injuries. Maybe it was the fact that he was able to sit down and breathe for the first time in the literal weeks since the final assault on the League began. And what a place he chose to finally sit his incredibly sore and bruised ass down, on top of a wrecked League combat machine in the middle of a field in direct view of the sun slowly sinking into the horizon. The soft and calm sounds of Eri by his side didn't hurt either. The girl's kidnapping at the hands of the League was what spurred on the final operation, and when Izuku burst into the heart of their home base and saw her, she was in rough shape. Now though, she rested boneless and exhausted next to him, having dropped there an hour ago before placing her head on his shoulder for what she promised would only be a minute to rest my eyes. She caved to her fatigue almost as soon as she said that, and has been snoozing quietly ever since. Izuku himself was in no hurry to wake her, knowing that reinforcements would come shortly to clean up any remaining stragglers and drag them to jail, and possibly take him to a hospital once they had the time. For now, he was content to wrap a limp hand around the young girl's shoulder as she rested, quietly waiting for whoever showed up first to take Hi home. Deku-kun. Izuku blinked before turning to the sound, a frantic call to ascertain his whereabouts and condition, no doubt, but his lethargy and possible concussion was making it hard to place both the owner of the voice and where exactly they were shouting. Deku-kun, where are you? The volume suggested Kachan, but Kun dismissed that notion right away. Not to mention that he was fairly certain that, regardless of whatever improvements had occurred to their friendship, he would likely not care enough to come looking for him. If Izuku had to guess, Kachan probably figured he would drag himself back eventually, so why bother looking? Not to mention that, now that he was listening to the voice more closely, it sounded distinctly female. Izuku. Uraraka. He shook his head and leaned over the edge of his perch on the fallen machine to look Dliken, seeing the very same heroine running about the scorched battlefield, whipping her head back and forth to find him. Uraraka-san. Up here. Her head whipped upwards, her face lighting up when she caught sight of him. She quickly touched various points on her person, pink flashes erupting when her quirk activated as she did. As soon as she started to float above the ground, she raised her legs for a second before kicking at the ground as hard as she could, sending her rocketing upwards towards his perch. She overshoots only slightly, putting her hands together as she passed him. Release. Soon she slowed her ascent and began to drop downwards, rolling as she hit the metal surface of the robot, bringing her face to face with him, noses inches apart. Hey, she muttered with a shake of her head. We lose communication with you for 3 hours and all you have to say is hey. I have a concussion. She shook her head again in disbelief. You are unbelievable, Deku. She looked left and right a few times, looking for something. Where's Shigaraki? Promoted stories. You'll also like Her Prince from the Underworld, Half Demon is. 0.25.2k 445. It's basically the same story as my Succubus Momo X Deku story. I know, real original, but hey, now you guys get a Deku from the other side of the tracks. Zero Deku Onishots 31k789. Because of circumstances, this book won't be continued unfortunately. Feel free to check out my other stuff. Thank you for understanding. The Kings and Queen Yandere Wakfu X Reader, 53.5k 1.7 Kyonder. Wakfu X Reader. Images do not belong to me unless stated. Wakfu does not belong to me, it belongs to Enigma. This is being rewritten in another book on my profile. I am, sequel of, UR check mark 69.4K 1.8K. This book is the sequel of, UR, so better read that first before going here. Tears of joy, tears of joy. Thank you to that one reader that suggested this title. I can't see you sad face, but thank you. Izuku's Harem Academia 179K 1.7 Qst. Read. Return of Mokuden discontinued, 3.5K 45. This story is officially up for adoption. If anyone is interested, message me or comment on the story. Feelings. Izawa. Ex-reader, 57K 1.3 KRE posting. This intel I edited, sorry if it's not good, it's my first time writing a story. You enroll at UA and you have multiple quirks you are really good at using, why? Deku's expression sobered and he nodded towards another wreck to the left. Beneath lay the unconscious body of the leader of the league, arms tied in a way his quirk would be unable to free him. Is he? Ya no. He's alive, Izuku said firmly, shaking his head as he thought back to the raving rants the man sent his way during their battle, but he won't be hurting anyone anymore. Uravati nodded firmly, a fiery look on her face as she looked at Shigaraki. The look vanished as she suddenly realized something. Wait. What about? She stopped as she caught sight of the young girl sleeping at his side, the sudden tension in her shoulders vanishing. Eri-chan. She sighed and put a hand on Eri's head, slowly moving her fingers through her white hair. Thank God you're okay. The girl leaned into the touch in her sleep, mumbling contently, Ochako-san. She turned to nuzzle her head in the palm. I'm home. Uraraka smiled wide enough that it looked like her cheeks would start to hurt, eyes shining with tears. That's right, Eri-chan. She looked back at Izuku, who felt a warmth spread up the back of his neck as he locked gazes with her. You're home. A few tears went down her cheeks. You're both home. Before Izuku knew what was going on, he found himself wrapped up in a bone-crushing hug. A few wet spots formed on his neck where Ochako buried her face and wept in relief. You, Uraraka, you have no idea how worried I was. She mumbled into his neck, tightening her grip slightly. How worried we all were. Just about the whole class rushed off to go find you. She laughed a bit deliriously. Even Bakugo ran off before anyone could stop him. Izuku would have to remember to apologize to Kachan later. If he could get his brain to work long enough while it was stuttering over the fact that Uraraka was hugging him, that is. Some of the pros started talking about the worst case, and I just couldn't take it and rushed off. She tightened her grip again, to the point where it somewhat hurt. Don't you dare scare me like that again, Uraraka-san. Izuku choked, half because of the pressure of the hug and half because of its simple existence. I promise I won't, and I'm really happy that you and all the others came to find me, but... He took in a thin breath. Could you please let go? I kinda have a dislocated shoulder. Oh, she leapt off of him, face flushing from embarrassment and worry. Sorry, I'm just so happy you're okay. She looked at his shoulder and his leg, which bent in the wrong way. Well, as okay as you can expect. Izuku chuckled a bit at that, wincing as the action moved his injured shoulder. Ochako winced in sympathy. That doesn't look good. Want me to help with that, or do you want to wait until we find Recovery Girl? He shook his head. No need to bother her with this. He grabbed his belt and put it between his teeth. Do it, he paired the muffled request with a nod. Ochako sandwiched his shoulder between her palms, took a breath, and quickly pushed his shoulder into place with a firm crack. A sharp groan escaped Izuku before he spat out his belt. That's gonna hurt in the morning. He leaned against the robot behind him with a gasp. Thanks, Uraraka-san. She shook her head again. Don't mention it. She glanced at his leg. Too bad I can't do anything about this though. She looked at the sleeping Eri. And I think Eri has had enough to do today. Izuku curled the arm he had over her shoulder as she mumbled in her sleep, nodding mutely. Yeah, I think we all did. Uraraka pressed a finger to her ear, activating her communicator. Command, do you copy? This is Uravati, do you copy? A muffled voice sounded from her earpiece, slightly panicked and causing her to laugh nervously. Why yeah, sorry about that Aizawa-sensei, but yeah. She looked at Izuku again with a soft smile. I found him, along with Eri-chan, they're okay. Izuku made himself comfortable as Uraraka made her report and requested for extraction, eyes once more drifting to the softly glowing red sunset, heart and mind calming at the sight, before. Drifting back to her, the red glow framing her like a halo of fading embers. Has she always been that beautiful? How could he not have seen it before? Of course, she was beautiful, did he ever tell her that? Izuku blinked. Wow, he really needed his head looked at as she finished her report. She looked back to him as he was still staring, raising an eyebrow at him as a faint pink bloomed on her cheeks. Is everything okay, Deku-kun? Yes, he squeaked out before clearing his throat and repeating, much more calmly, I mean, yeah, I'm okay just. He lingered on her still, framed by the sunset, before he gulped a sudden lump stopping him from breathing. I was just admiring the sunset. Oh, she laughed nervously as she looked behind her, expression softening as she laid eyes on the setting sun. I don't blame you. She slowly walked backward until her back hit the wall and she slid down, making herself comfortable next to him. It's really beautiful. He gazed at her for a long time, the wind blowing her hair as the fading glow of the departing day shone on her face and glimmered in her eyes like stars. He smiled softly to himself as he settled down, leaning his shoulder against hers. Yeah, really beautiful. And so they waited for the rest of the class to come with the rescue team, promises of reports, and an extended stay at the hospital looming beyond the fading sun. Their victory today was no small feat. It was hard fought and hard won, but it will be far from the last. One day another threat will come to threaten all they hold dear, and they will stand again to fight it back to defend those they love and those unable to protect themselves. The future was rife with promises of peril and danger that he would need to prepare for. But, for now, Izuku contented himself with where he was right now, calm and at peace, taking in a gorgeous sight. Whatever the following days and years and decades may bring, they will always have this sunset. Note, in Japan, you shouldn't say that to your crush or partner. The sunset is beautiful means, I love you but I'm letting you go. Sunset symbolizes passage of time, so when two characters stare at the sunset or say that it is beautiful, it symbolizes either one of them will die or say goodbye to you. Where stories live, discover now.